Hi boys and girls, welcome back to Aunt Vicky's. Once again, I managed to go to the flea market across the way. And in America, we like to pray and to ask blessings about things. And one of the things that Aunt Vicky found was something that has to do with my faith. We all share different faiths, and that's good. And that's what I think makes us all unique, is that we have our own different ways of seeing things. And so I'd like to show you what I got. I have a beautiful, beautiful little Sacred Heart. It's called the Sacred Heart. It's Christ in the Christian faith and belief, and it's got a little red heart. And it doesn't really matter, boys and girls, exactly what faith or belief that you're really in, as long as you know to be good, do what's right, and respect and mind your elders, your parents, and just see what good you can bring to this world. Okay? Okay, let's see what wonderful story Aunt Vicky has for you today. As always, Aunt Vicky's magical hat box with the magical teapot inside the happy stories. Okay, here we go, boys and girls, once again. And as always, we know that the points are always giving away the clues to the stories. So here's the point with the clue, and you see if you can guess. Empty little house. By the waters of a pond, an empty little house stood, made of pretty timber from fresh logs of wood. Against the dark sky twinkled fiery stars of night, as a large moon glowed across the farm, soft, milky white. 'Twas built the house for grinding mill, far and long ago, but just truly how old it was, nobody could really know. The country folk told of ghostly hauntings, and never dared to near it. Spooky it was, with popping and creaking of a gentle old spirit. By the waters of a pond, an empty little house stood, made of pretty timber from fresh logs of wood. Okay. I don't know if you caught on to the clue or not, but you're so smart. I'm just assuming that you really did. Okay, in case you didn't, but I'm sure you did, it is going to be about Cuddles and Spuddles, of course, and the ghost. Did you guess it was going to be about a ghost? Yes, you did. Okay, it's going to be about a ghost of Mill Pond, okay? Cuddles and Spuddles were out playing down by the old mill pond. They were trying to catch fish, and they sat on the covered bridge that stretched out over the pond. Maudie the mama cat had caught a few minnows, and then she decided to go find Cap the sheepdog. Cap was sitting in the barn and guarding the pretty speckled hens who were sitting in their nest. The rooster, Sir General Red, was sitting perched on top of the feeding barrel as usual. The rooster and Cap were enjoying each other's company as they sat waiting the arrival of new baby chicks. Maudie came through the barn doors, and she curled up beside Cap, who was lying on the hay scattered about on the barn's floor. She meowed. "Do we have any baby chicks yet?" Cap made a hushed roof sound in reply. "Not yet, but it will be any time now." It was a very pleasant day on Leafy Farm, and the gentle breeze blew with a soft whistle through the barn. Cuddles and Spuddles had finally tired of catching minnows, and so they went to play in the mill pond house. Their favorite game was to play hide and seek, and they played almost all day long. Mr. and Mrs. Leafy had went into town with Mr. Rivers. They had went shopping for groceries and other household items. Old Wiser the Owl slept all evening up high in the oak tree. The leaves stirred and rustled about around him, and sunlight beamed down between the stirring of the leaves. Betsy the milk cow grazed out in the open pastures, enjoying the warmth of the summery day. She could hear the kittens as she grazed up closer toward the old mill pond house. Cuddles and Spuddles were playing and running and meowing ever so loudly. Betsy decided to check on the twin kittens, and she mooed outside the mill house. Cuddles and Spuddles heard Betsy moo, and they raced outside to see her. The kittens meowed. "What you doing, Betsy?" Now Betsy hesitated for a moment before answering. She thought about all the saws and dangerous blades inside the old mill pond house. She also knew that Mrs. Leafy's homemade jams and jellies, as well as glass jars of fruits and vegetables, were stored inside there. Suddenly Betsy mooed. "Haven't you two kittens heard about the ghost who haunts that old mill house?" The kittens roared with laughter in the meadow's soft grass and wildflowers. "Oh, Betsy," meowed Cuddles and Spuddles, "that's so silly." Betsy mooed in reply. "Well, maybe it is, and maybe it isn't." Now Betsy the milk cow had decided that she would tell the kittens about the story of the ghostly haunting if they would sit quietly and stop laughing and rolling about. Cuddles and Spuddles stopped and sat down eagerly to listen to Betsy's story. After all, everyone knew Betsy the milk cow knew everything there was to tell about the farm. "Many, many years ago," mooed Betsy, "a family came and settled here on Leafy Farm. But only then it wasn't called Leafy Farm. It was just a place that nobody lived on. The only thing here were woods, a long running creek bed, and a large pond surrounded by open fields of grass and wildflowers. The family was very poor, and since they only had a little money, they built a small log mill pond house. They built it out of the timber from the wooded area. The reason they built a mill house was to grow corn, wheat, and barley to grind and sell. They built the house beside the pond to use the water that was needed to spin a big wooden wheel for the grinding. The little room that the family built on the back of the mill house where Mrs. Leafy stores food is the part that was used for the living quarter. Now the family enjoyed the long, cold, wintry days, and skating out on the frozen pond was ever so much fun. The long summer that they spent building the house and grinding meal had also been very delightful. But one day, an old gentleman was traveling by and saw the pretty mill pond house made of logs. And he liked the open fields and the woods with the long, narrow creek bed. The old traveling gentleman had a long white beard and a walking cane that some say was made out of pure gold. He knocked on the family's door and talked to them. He offered them a very good price and talked to them about it. And they decided they would accept the offer. Soon the family moved away and the old gentleman moved into the house. He continued to farm the land and grind the mill. As the years slowly passed, the white, long-bearded old gentleman with the cane became unable to do the farm work anymore. So he placed the for sale sign up next to the highway. Oh my, how he hated to sell the beautiful farm, but nonetheless it had to be sold. Soon a man and a lady came by and bought the farm. The old gentleman, with tears in his eyes, packed his suitcase and took his long walking cane and closed the door behind him. As he walked up the dark farm road, he was never seen or ever heard from again. That is, until years later. The new owners had a son named Hunter, and soon they moved into the Mill Pond house. But they thought it was a bit too small to work in and live in too. So they built a new charming farmhouse up by the little dirt road. Hunter was a very good son, and he caught the school bus and went to school every day. He had a best friend by the name of Nate, and on the weekends, Hunter and Nate played and ran all over the woods. They even helped Hunter's father build the big red and white barn. Yes, Hunter and his friends enjoyed the farm, and in the summertime, when school was out, Nate would even spend the whole summer long with Hunter, and they went fishing almost every day down here at the old Mill Pond. The years came and went, and soon Hunter and his friend Nate was all grown up. Nate bought a hardware store in town, but Hunter, he continued to live on the farm. When Hunter decided to get married, he built a charming farm cottage for his beautiful wife, Miss Mary Gertrude Hannon. They had a big barn dance, and neighbors came from near and far to celebrate the happy occasion. Hunter's parents moved away after the big celebration, and they wished Hunter and Miss Mary Gertrude many, many years of happiness. The farm was now completely left for Hunter and his wife to take care of. Once again, time was going by. Soon, Nate, who owned the hardware store, decided he would sell the store, and Hunter asked Nate to live in the farmhouse across the road. And that is exactly what Nate and his cat did. You see, Mood Betsy, Nate is Mr. Rivers, and his cat is Marty. What's more, Hunter and Miss Mary Gertrude are Mr. and Mrs. Leafy. That is how the farm came to be known as the Leafy's Farm. Cuddles and Spuddles loved hearing all about the story of the farm, but they did not understand how any of this could make the old Mill Pond house haunted. Well, Mood Betsy, the way I hear tell, the old gentleman with the long white beard and gold walking cane came back as a ghost, and he brought his suitcase with him, and they say it is filled with lots of money, because instead of grinding meal, he grinds golden coins to match his golden walking cane. Cuddles and Spuddles gulped and meowed, but we played in the Mill Pond house. Betsy mooed again in a quiet, hush mooing sound. I would not do that if I was a kitten. Cuddles and Spuddles meowed in a soft whisper. Why not? Betsy mooed in reply, because on breezy, windy days, you can hear the old gentleman humming and rattling about inside the mill house, and rumors are told that if he catches little kittens playing about He grinds them into sweet mix and sells them at the marketplace downtown. Cuddles and Spuddles, guys, they just didn't know what to think about a ghost like that. But they thought to themselves, maybe it would be best if they didn't go back in there for a while. The sun was now lowering behind the hill on Leafy Farm, and Betsy the milk cow and the kittens decided it was time to go back toward the barn and the farm cottage. As they reached the barn, Old Wiser flew overhead and called down, hooting, "Woo, woo!" Cuddles and Spuddles meowed and asked, "Where you going, Wiser?" "I'm going to go hunting, and there's a surprise in the barn." As he hooted once more with a loud "woo, woo," away he flew, higher and higher into the sky, until he was completely out of sight. Betsy and the twin kittens hurried into the big barn to see the surprise that Old Wiser had hooted about. The doors of the barn were wide open, and there stood Mr. and Mrs. Leafy and Mr. Rivers, and all of the farmyard animals. Out in the middle of the barn floor were the cutest little baby chicks that you could ever imagine seeing. They made pretty peeping noises, and all of Leafy Farm was so happy to have the new baby chickens to be part of the Leafy Farm family. That night, the sweet summer breeze was filled with the soft scent of honeysuckles and the peeping sounds of baby chicks. The Leafy cottage was resting peacefully, except for Cuddles and Spuddles. And even though it was well after midnight, they just could not fall asleep. The twin kittens could not get Betsy's story of the old gentleman ghost off their minds. Cuddles and Spuddles were meowing in whispers back and forth to each other. The twin kittens decided they just had to know if that mill pond house was really, really haunted. They slipped out quietly through the little pet door in the kitchen, and past the barn they raced, and through the meadows they went as quickly as their paws could carry them. But when they got to the old mill pond house, they sneaked ever so quietly up the rickety wooden log steps. They stopped for a moment when they got to the very top step and began meowing in a soft meowing whisper. They were arguing about who had to go in first. But before they even had a chance to decide, there was a grinding sound, and it was coming from inside of the old mill pond house. They sat very quietly, and then they heard a crunching sound. Then once more they heard the grinding sound. Suddenly, there was a tapping sound. It sounded like a golden walking cane tapping on the wooden table of corn just inside the doorway. Cuddles and Spuddles were shaking so bad that their teeth were chattering. Then they heard a voice calling from inside the house, and it asked, "Who's there?" It sounded just like an old gentleman ghost with a long white beard and a golden walking cane. Cuddles and Spuddles raced back across the field and past the barn and back through the pet door of the cottage, and they didn't stop until they both slid underneath the homemade quilt. Needless to say, they raced over to the old mill pond house, but they got back much faster than they had gotten over there. Now out of the barn, Betsy the milk cow had seen the kittens going past, and she mooed a gentle laugh when she saw them race back. Betsy was standing near the barn's open window, and she knew the kittens had not seen her standing there waiting for Wiser the owl. As the cow looked out through the window, she saw the owl flying through the night sky, holding a small sack in his claws. Oh, Wiser landed on the windowsill and hooted. "Hoo, hoo! Here you go, Betsy. A small sack of grinded corn, just like you asked for." Betsy mooed and asked, "Wiser, did you see the kittens while you were getting me a sack of corn from the mill pond house?" Oh, Wiser the owl hooted. "Hoo, hoo! I sure did, and I doubt they go back inside that mill pond house for a very, very long time." Wiser and Betsy were laughing and laughing, and they shared the sack of fresh ground corn. But inside the farm cottage, Cuddles and Spuddles were still shivering and shaking, and as they drifted off to sleep, it seemed somewhere far off in the distant night they could hear an old gentleman tapping a golden walking cane and rattling golden coins as he called with a ghostly sound, "Who's there?" and a spooky 99. Oh, yay! Well, we had a delight with that story, didn't we? And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you did. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Had a lot of fun writing it for you, too. And once again, I hope that you will come back to see Aunt Vicky. I have missed you, and sorry I have been away for a while. But I'm going to write another story and maybe a holiday story. I'm not quite sure, but when Aunt Vicky comes back, we'll know. So, with sweetness and love, night-to-night, boys and girls. See you next time.